as the
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi has secured a decisive snap election victory, with her LDP alliance tackling 352 of 465 seats. She now faces challenges on debt, inflation, defense policies. Hong Kong's court has sentenced pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai to 20 years in prison for foreign collusion, and sedition rights groups say the ruling marks another blow to Hong Kong's freedoms. Thailand's Conservative Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has declared victory after TV projections showed his party winning the most parliamentary seats by a wide margin. Anutin said the result belonged to all Thais regardless of how they voted. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in an interview that Russia is open to cooperation with the United States but sees no bright future for economic ties, citing Washington's pursuit of economic dominance, undercutting hopes for a reset between US and Russia. US envoy to Syria Tom Barak held a phone call with Kurdistan Democratic Party President Masoud Barzani to discuss Syria and regional politics, with both sides stressing the need to prevent escalation and to work towards lasting stability. This is seen as a key step towards Syria's unity and restoring state authority. Syria's Foreign Minister Assad Hassan al-Shaibani and Intelligence Chief Hussein al-Salama are in Riyadh to participate in talks at the Global Coalition to defeat ISIS. They were hosted by Saudi Deputy Foreign Minister Walid bin Abdul Karim al-Khuraiji, marking a high-level security meeting hosted by Saudi Arabia. Two South Korean Army crew members were killed after an AH-1S Cobra attack helicopter crashed during a training flight shortly after 11 a.m. local time. Now the military has suspended all AH-1S operations and launched an emergency investigation into the cause of the crash, which remains unknown for now. Venezuelan opposition figure Juan Pablo Guanipa, a close ally of Maria Corina Machado, was kidnapped in Caracas shortly after his release from prison yesterday. Guanipa had been detained for more than 8 months on politically motivated charges and was released, with his abduction raising new concerns. For this hour, we start with the breaking news. Iran Supreme Leader's advisor Ali Larijani will visit Oman on Tuesday. The trip comes after recent US-Iran indirect nuclear talks in Muscat. Larijani, also Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, is expected to meet with Oman's senior officials. The discussions will focus on regional developments and bilateral cooperation. Now we move on to China. China has warned Japan against any reckless actions threatening a resolute response following Japan's recent election. The warning comes after Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, who is seen as a critical of China, won a landslide victory. Takaichi had stirred controversy in November last year, with her remarks suggesting Japan could intervene militarily if Taiwan, which China claims as its territory, were attacked. China has long considered Taiwan a part of its own territory and has not ruled out force to annex it. Lin Jian, the spokesperson for China's foreign ministry, has responded to the election results by emphasizing that China's position on Japan will not be altered by the outcome of the election. Let's listen in.
我们敦促日本执政当局正视而不是漠视国际社会的关切，走和平发展道路，而不是重蹈军国主义覆辙。恪守中日4个政治文件，而不是背信弃义。日本极右翼势力若误判形势，恣意妄为，必将遭到日本人民的抵制和国际社会迎头痛击。
Lin Jian has repeatedly urged Japan to retract Takaichi's comments and warned of consequences for any hasty actions. Additionally, the spokesman has stated that if Japan's far-right forces act recklessly, they will face both resistance from Japanese citizens and also a firm reaction from the international community. Let's now listen into those comments.
我们再次敦促日方撤回高市涉台错误言论，以实际行动展现维护中日关系政治基础的。我们也要正告日本执政当局，中国人民维护国家核心利益的决心坚定不移，捍卫二战胜利成果和战后国际秩序的决心坚定不移，反击和挫败各种反华势力挑衅妄动的决心。
Now for this, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joined us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, as you mentioned when she first took the office, you mentioned that, China was testing waters with her and seeing or testing her reaction. So from your analysis, do you think they're still testing her once again, as now she has taken office once again?
Indeed, China has already known that she will continue as a prime minister before the election. So that's why China has started this test. So that's why if China found something, the weak point of her, of course, China got enough information, so that's why there's a possibility to end. But indeed, they haven't found any weak point, I believe. So that's why they will continue to make pressure to find the weak point of her, I think. And in this case, China's attitude toward Japan is something like that, but it is quite beneficial for the PM Takaichi in this election because thanks to China's pressure, Japan is a little bit upset and try to show a strong support to PM Takaichi. So indeed, China's attitude itself is something support PM Takaichi view from the result. So that's why even if China believe this is a strong measure to deal with PM Takaichi, completely reverse effect has happened. And in this case, we can compare the attitude of China and the United States. In U.S. case is before the election, the President Trump already expressed his support to the PM Takaichi, and after the elections, immediately the United States expressed their support to the PM Takaichi. So, indeed, in this case, if we compare the attitude of China and United States, Japan's stance is clearly the side of the U.S. So if China wants Japan to back down, indeed the situation is completely opposite now. And so Japan will support the U.S. operation to defend Taiwan. And the honest explanation of the PM Takaichi just explains the fact. So that's why China cannot get something back down from Japan. So anyway, this is shameful for China, and this is a victory for PM Takaichi, I think.
Right. So do you think China has now decided on how to deal with her, and now that you say that this China's firm stance and also her reaction, Prime Minister Takaichi's stance, is instead working for Takaichi's support as a tailwind? What do you think has led to Japan's voters' perception or change in being used to this new stance or new firm stance towards this sensitive topic like Taiwan and China? Because traditionally we did not, at least in my lifetime, I didn't see many LDP leaders or Japanese politicians take such firm stand.
Yeah. So world has changed, Japan has already changed too. World has changed recently. We can see the many conflicts in the world because it looks like this is one kind of the multipolar world, which is many powers compete each other. So that's why each powers need to deal with their problems themselves, and strong power is needed, especially strong military power is needed. So that's why this is the age of the competition. In this case, Japan needs to be strong, and along with allies and partners, Japan needs to show their effort. Without their own effort, any other country will not support Japan. So that's why under the PM Takaichi, her policy is making Japan strong. That was very popular now, thanks to China, thanks to the President Trump's support or the President Trump's rearrangement of the world order. So that's why now the PM Takaichi will move ahead along with her promise. And this is indeed very popular in Japan, the election proved.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us. Now we have a breaking news. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has concluded that U.S. financier Jeffrey Epstein did not run a network providing underage sexual services to influential individuals. According to reports, the FBI meticulously examined Epstein's bank records and emails and conducted searches of his residences over several years. It interviewed his victims and investigated his connections with some of the world's most powerful people. The Bureau has concluded that the financier sexually abused underage girls but did not find sufficient evidence that he ran a prostitution network. For instance, the FBI did not identify any links between Epstein's payments and criminal activity. Individuals interviewed by the Bureau's agents reported that the sexual abuse was perpetrated not by Epstein but by other people. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's joining us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Nagao, for staying with us. Now the latest revelations has come stating that he has abused underage girls, but he was not running a prostitution for using underage girls or involving underage girls. This might be different from what some viewers were expecting. What do you make of this?
Indeed, this is under the investigation and the new facts is revealing. So that's why it is impossible to identify what really happened in this case. But this case is important, and the FBI or investigator or the other commentator like me also be careful, because this is influential scandal. So not only United States but also the many countries in the Western side could be affected by this incident. So that's why what really happened is very important, and this is still under the investigation. There is a possibility that this during the process of the prostitution, the Epstein or someone other get very sensitive information. And in this case, information itself, it could be something they can sell. So that's why what kind of information he will get, or who is the real mastermind of this network. And there's a possibility that many Russians' involvement is there. So that's why is it related with the spy game between Russia and the United States or Russia and the Western countries? These are the very important aspect of this issue. So that's why we should be careful and identify what really happened.
Yes, indeed. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Satoru Nagao for joining us today and sharing that insight with us on NewsX World. Now we move on to EU. The European Union has condemned the 20-year prison sentence handed to Hong Kong pro-democracy media tycoon Jimmy Lai. The EU has said it deplores the ruling and called for Lai's immediate and unconditional release. In a statement, the bloc urged Hong Kong authorities to restore confidence in press freedom. It also called on officials to stop persecuting journalists, warning the case undermines fundamental rights in the city. The remarks add to growing international pressure over the handling of high-profile political cases in Hong Kong. Now we move on to Asia. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has been invited to the United States on 19th of February. He is expected to attend a meeting linked to U.S. President Donald Trump's Board of Peace, according to an Indonesian government official. Indonesia is also hoping to sign a trade agreement with President Donald Trump during the visit. The plan was confirmed by presidential spokesperson Prasetyo Hadi. The trip could mark a key moment for Indonesia's diplomatic and economic engagement with Washington as well. Now we welcome Mr. Peter Baum. He's an editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for joining us. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, Indonesia, first I would like to ask about Board of Peace. Since Indonesia has accepted, but many Western nations like Italy and I think France, many of them have rejected the idea of joining. Do you think it will still be legitimate, or Board of Peace would still be legitimate, and would they be able to move towards the direction that President Trump has set out for, like the peace? Do you think they will be able to do that without a strong Western ally participant?
Should Indonesia join the Board of Peace, and the signs are that she will indeed join, this will come as a real diplomatic coup for President Trump, and will be seen as a rebuff to all those nations that want to see the Trump peace plan fail, including some Western nations who have adopted a very anti-Trump agenda. Indonesia, being the most popular Muslim nation in the world, is obviously one of the more moderate Islamic nations, and the Cabinet and President and Prime Minister of Indonesia have indeed issued statements since October the 7th that there should be normalisation with Israel. Now clearly, them joining the Board of Peace is a sign that they're going on that political path, but obviously, of course, they want to get something out of it, and that will be some economic benefits, and I'm sure President Trump will do his utmost to ensure that economically Indonesia will be seen to gain many advantages should they join the peace deal. The losers in this will be all those diplomats and countries who have adopted an anti-Trump stance, all those diplomats and countries who want the Trump peace plan to fail, and all those diplomats and countries who are really bowing towards their anti-Israeli domestic audience for the sake of upcoming elections. In the UK, for example, in May, we have a number of what we call local elections, and I think the current government is playing to them rather than to see the pragmatism of what President Trump is trying to do. But the inclusion of Indonesia in the Board of Peace, believe me, is highly significant. It is a sign to all those moderate Arab countries and Muslim nations, and it is a sign to all those countries in Europe, such as Spain and France, and Ireland, who are very much against President Trump succeeding.
So what do you think, even if Indonesia does join, how does other European allies or traditional allies of US's rejection to join this Board of Peace affect the legitimacy and credibility of this Board of Peace?
The EU nations who aren't joining have lost complete credibility anyway. They are actually an irrelevance. It makes no difference whether they join the Board of Peace or not. Trump has sufficient countries, I think 40 or 45 now, that will join. That's about a third at least of the United Nations, and there are some that need acts of parliament to join, which account for about another 20 or 30. So the fact that our own government, the United Kingdom government, which don't forget is under severe pressure, it may not even survive the next few months, is completely irrelevant whether they join or not. And France, as we know, has a highly negative view of President Trump, despite some of the statements emanating from President Macron. And frankly, whether France, the UK, or Spain or Ireland don't join the Board of Peace is actually irrelevant. It will get done, and those nations that buy into it will benefit economically.
And lastly, based on Trump's past initiatives, how likely is that this board becomes a durable international mechanism versus a symbolic platform?
Yeah, well, clearly the United Nations as an organisation is being sidelined, and the Secretary General of the United Nations, Guterres, is a complete irrelevance these days. I think Trump has met him perhaps twice in the whole time that he's taken on the role of President of the United States last year. So the Board of Peace is actually sidelining the ineffective United Nations. We call it the theatre of the absurd. And I think, although it may not be a substitute for the United Nations, there will be similar organisations growing that realise they can do without the United Nations in order to achieve objectives. So, as I say, it's not meant to be a substitute for the UN, but who needs the UN when about 40 or 50 countries are joining an organisation that will help President Trump and the Israelis and the Palestinians hopefully achieve their objectives, something which the United Nations has failed to do for the last 70 years.
Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you. Now, moving on to Iran, Iran has arrested at least 4 senior members of the Reform Front, including its head Azhar Mansouri, following a recent wave of political crackdowns. The arrests are part of a broader campaign of mass detentions aimed at curbing dissent after last month's deadly protests. The most violent unrest in Iran since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Among those arrested are Ibrahim Asgharzadeh, Mohsin Aminzadeh, and Mansouri. Authorities have yet to clarify the charges against those detained, though state media have linked them to foreign-backed groups. The arrests highlight the ongoing tensions in Iran as authorities seek to suppress further protest activity. Now we welcome back Mr. Peter Baum. He's an editor at Weekly Blitz, joins us live from London. Thank you very much, Mr. Baum, for staying with us. Now, looking at Iran, do you think that Iranian government is now trying to, suppress the voices that were, or the people who were standing up for themselves? Do you think they're trying to enforce fair?
Well, clearly they are. We've seen this in the last few months. This is just another process by which the totalitarian theocrats want to suppress any opposition voices who feel that the current government is acting in a way that is frankly immoral and inhumane. The Iranian government have very little else they can do. This revolution is not going to die down despite the atrocities committed by the Iranian government, and they are currently in a very weak position. By suppressing these opposition voices clearly exacerbates the weakness of the government. So going forward, we can see the continuing build-up of military hardware by the United States, discussions they're having with Israel, the other countries surrounding Iran closing their borders virtually, and Russia and China not being able to help their Iranian ally as they would like to. In addition, the Iranian proxies are very weak as well. So this suppression of opposition voices in Iran is to be expected. It's surprising that these people haven't been arrested previously. Perhaps the Iranian authorities weren't able to get hold of them, or perhaps they were busy suppressing the riots in the streets. One doesn't know why that in the last 24 hours they've arrested these opposition voices. I suspect more will come, and it's only a question of time now, should the negotiations fail with the USA, and I believe they will, that we will see some kind of military action.
So, Mr. Baum, in case these negotiations do fail, well, let me go back. So, how should we interpret, after the negotiations, the latest one in Oman? So, US, of course, did not issue any statements after that, but Iran did, and Iran was rather positive about, or their attitudes was rather positive. So, do you think this is a genuine diplomatic progress between them, or a familiar pattern where we see dialogue and pressure being pursued in parallel?
No, there was no diplomatic progress with the negotiations, and all, excuse me, all the Iranians can do is play for time. So their statement about there has been some progress was totally expected from them, because all the Iranians want to do is to have another series of negotiations in 1 or 2 weeks' time. I believe the Americans, because the Iranians completely rebuffed the 4 points that Donald Trump insisted they look at, I believe there may be one more round of negotiations very quickly. But after that, if the Iranians don't comply with Mr. Trump's demands, which is non-enrichment, stop enrichment of uranium, stop ballistic missile production, stop cracking down on the protesters, and stop funding and arming their proxies, if they don't comply with all those 4 requests, demands I should say, then I think we will see military action.
With that, I'd like to thank Mr. Baum for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Lebanon. The death toll from the collapse of residential building in Lebanon's northern city of Tripoli has risen to 14 people after search and rescue operations ended. Lebanon's national news agency cited Civil Defense Chief Imad Kreis as saying rescue teams recovered 14 bodies and saved 8 people from the rubble in the Bab al-Tabane neighborhood. Officials said 2 adjoining buildings collapsed on Sunday. Tripoli Municipal Council head Abdelhamid Karame said the number of people are still missing could not be confirmed, though earlier reports said 22 residents lived in the buildings. State media says a series of similar collapses in recent weeks have highlighted aging infrastructure and years of neglect in Lebanon's second largest city. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news and updates from around the world.